Before we strike the match tonight and really dive in, I want to take a moment to just be real with you, human to human. Life is shifting a lot right now. I'm back to working full time, raising kids, trying to be a functioning human, and at the same time, building this entire world that I see so vividly in my mind. And if I'm honest, I've been tired. Not the I need a nap kind of tired, but the kind that seeps into your bones and makes even your passion projects feel heavy. I've been trying to balance work, family, this podcast, and the dream I'm building. And sometimes in the middle of it all, I catch myself whispering that same old fear I'm about to talk about tonight. Maybe I'm too much. Not because anyone said it lately, but because sometimes I say it to myself. Because I'm dreaming big and moving slow. Because I've got 1,000 ideas that all want to be born at once and a very human body that still needs sleep and snacks and sanity. I met with my business mentor recently and we talked about everything it's going to take to really bring the vision to life. And she's even reaching out to some people who might be able to help make it real. It was exciting and overwhelming because the truth is, I can't do this alone. I need a whole team, a structure, a rhythm, and lately I have fallen a little off track. Since starting this new job, I've been exhausted, choosing Netflix or doom scrolling when I know I should be writing or recording, and honestly, it's gone deeper than that. I've pulled back a bit from the people I was connecting with consistently, the ones I was building relationships with and really nurturing. Not intentionally, just that quiet fade that happens when overwhelm starts to whisper you don't have the energy to reach out right now. And then suddenly you realize it's been days or weeks and you miss them, but you're still too drained to bridge that gap. Not because I don't care, but because I'm human, because sometimes the weight of building your dreams can feel heavier than the dream itself. But here's what I keep reminding myself. Being too much isn't the problem. It's trying to fit all that fire into a life that doesn't yet have enough room for it. This podcast, The Void and the Flame, is just one flame in a constellation I'm creating. A living ecosystem of healing, story, and connection that'll eventually grow in coaching programs, digital spaces, journals, and maybe even an app. But I can't build that alone. I need a village. So if you're someone with experience in app development, UX design, storytelling, sound, or community building, or just believe in what this movement stands for, I'd love to connect, reach out, start a conversation, because this isn't just mine, it's ours. It's for everyone who's ever been told they feel too much, love too deeply, or burn too brightly. Now, things might shift again as I find my rhythm. Podcast days might change, new projects might branch off, but what won't change is the heart behind it, the truth, the healing, and fire. All right, if you're ready, let's begin. Welcome back to The Void and the Flame. I'm Rachel, or Ray. Nobody special, just somebody who has felt too much, too many times, and been told it a few times. Anyways, you know what's funny? The phrase, you're too much, sounds so small, but it hits like a wrecking ball. One of the times I heard it, it wasn't about volume. It was about voltage. Too emotional, too intense, too aware. Translation, you make me feel things my nervous system forgot it could register. Back in 2021, I reconnected with my first love, 17 years later. It started like every nostalgic movie you've ever seen: soft music, late night messages, the easy click of old chemistry. It felt like magic until it didn't. And when the connection started to wobble, I did what most too much people do. I overfunctioned. Texted first, explained more, tried to read the emotional weather like I was NASA tracking storms. And then one day he said it. You're just too much. And it cracked something in me because it wasn't just about him. It was every time I'd been told that my care was clingy, my emotion was dramatic, and my intuition was inconvenient. It was every moment someone made me feel like my heart needed a dimmer switch. But here's the truth I wish I'd known then. When someone calls you too much, they're revealing their capacity, not your defect. You're not excessive, you're expansive. I want to talk about the mirror that nobody really talks about. And if you're one of those people who've ever said you're too much to somebody, I want you to know this isn't a call out, it's an invitation. Because we've all done it in some form. We've all had that friend or partner who just felt like a lot. Their emotions fill the room, their honesty cuts too close, their needs feel endless. And your first instinct might be to pull back, to breathe, to protect your calm. That doesn't make you cruel, it makes you human. It just means their energy pressed against a boundary you hadn't named yet. But the real work, the growth, happens when you pause long enough to ask yourself, why does their intensity feel unsafe to me? Because sometimes it's not about them being too much. It's about you being disconnected from your own too much. Their bigness mirrors your own bigness, the parts you buried to stay acceptable. And that's where compassion gets its start. When both sides stop pretending that one is right and the other is too much, things start to shift. Someone once told me that I felt bewitching, and it's true. Not in the fairy tale sense, but in the way energy can be hypnotic when it's unfiltered. He saw parts of me that no one else had, the freer, wilder version of myself I usually kept tucked away. But here's the paradox of people like us, the ones often labeled too much. The very traits that draw others in are usually the ones they end up running from. They love your passion until it asks them to meet you in it. They love your depth until it starts reflecting back what they've buried. They love your honesty until it challenges their comfort. And they love your fire until they realize fire also gives off heat. And somewhere between fascination and fear, the story changes. The same eyes that once looked at you with wonder start to look at you with overwhelm. And that's when the phrase too much gets whispered. Not as cruelty, but as confession. Because what they're really saying is, I feel small in the presence of something this alive. One man once told me that even though he knew he was taller than me, he always perceived me as taller than him. He said it had something to do with my power, and I see now that was his body translating what words couldn't. He could feel my presence stretching beyond space he knew how to hold. So maybe too much isn't rejection at all. Maybe it's recognition, an acknowledgement of power, of life force, of depth. And sometimes when someone says you're too much, what they really mean is, you remind me how alive I could be if I let myself feel everything you do. I want to talk about the shrinking response. So for most of my life, when people pulled away from that aliveness, I took it personally. I thought if my fire scared them, it meant I needed to become a candle. Smaller, quieter, easier to hold. I edited myself mid-sentence. I apologized for emotions I hadn't even expressed yet. I dimmed what was meant to be sunrise down to a nightlight, just to keep people comfortable. But here's what I know now. Every time I made myself smaller, the connection didn't actually deepen. It disappeared. Because the moment you stop showing up as your full self, the relationship stops being real. They fall in love with your shadow version, not your truth. So now, when someone pulls back or says I'm too much, I try not to shrink anymore. I pause, I breathe. I remind myself that my depth is not a threat. It's an invitation. They can either rise to meet it or step aside. Let's talk science for a second. When someone you love starts pulling away, your brain doesn't go, yes. They're emotionally overwhelmed. No, it goes, danger, abandonment imminent. Your attachment system fires like an alarm. Your heart's racing, your stomach gets tight. Hypervigilant scrolling, that's your body trying to restore safety, not you being needy. You're not broken, you're wired for connection. That's polyvagal 101. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between emotional distance and physical threat. But here's the plot twist. The same biology that makes you panic is also what lets you heal. When you regulate, when you breathe, when you anchor into your body, you're literally teaching your vagus nerve that love doesn't mean danger. Your body isn't malfunctioning, it's messaging. It's sending a push notification that says, hey, safety check, where'd the connection go? You just need to update the translation. So around the same time that I had reconnected with my first love was also around the same time I found that very first tarot deck, the one that I had bought years before thinking it would just be a Halloween prop. It had surfaced in a dusty box when I moved into my mom's house. The timing was uncanny, or perfect. It was The Wild Unknown Tarot by Kim Tran's dark, intricate, alive. Let me show you that. I started pulling cards every day thinking they might rescue me. They didn't. It was the start of what I now call my spiritual bypass phase, that desperate search for certainty in symbols instead of self. And he had always showed up to me as the King of Pentacles. Grounded, stable, reliable, but also immovable. Rooted in practicality, guarded by logic, and it fits. He's a Taurus after all. Every Taurus man that I've ever known carries that same earthy steadiness, patience, loyal, sensual, and sometimes so rooted they forget how to move. Every time I pulled for myself, I was the star. Hope, healing, light in the darkness. Even then, the cards were trying to tell me the story I couldn't see yet. Earth and air, safety and spirit. One searching for stability outside of himself and the other searching for freedom within. I didn't realize that at the time, but I wasn't reading about us. I was reading about me. Tarot wasn't a compass pointing to him, it was a mirror reflecting back to myself. When someone you love pulls away emotionally, your brain doesn't interpret it as he's overwhelmed. It interprets it as danger. The attachment system, that primal circuitry wired for connection, can't tell the difference between physical abandonment and emotional distance. Your heart races, your chest tightens, you check your phone like a life raft. You think you're being needy, but you're not. You're trying to restore safety. That's polyvagal theory in action. Your body's safety system uses neuroception, an unconscious process that reads tone, expression, and presence to decide if you're safe. So when the sense of connection breaks, the system flips you into fight, flight, or freeze, which we've talked about in previous episodes. So when he stopped answering, my body panicked. Every vibration made my pulse jump. Every silence sounded like rejection. Every hour of waiting reinforced the belief that love could vanish without warning, which was something I had learned a lot in my lifetime. And that's the cruelest part. Your nervous system doesn't care about logic. It only knows presence or absence, safety or danger. So over time, I burned out. Chronic stress downregulates the dopamine, the motivation and joy circuit dims. Joy evaporates and numbness sets in. That's what emotional deprivation feels like. A nervous system running on empty. But here's the thing. When he left, he accidentally gave me something sacred. He cracked me open, and in the breaking, I finally started to feel everything I had buried. I want you to take a breath with me. In through your nose, and out through your mouth. Let your body know that it's safe to keep listening. I spent the whole summer after that by water. Creeks, rivers, small waterfalls tucked into the edges of nowhere. I'd drive until I found somewhere quiet, sit on the rocks, and let the current carry my thoughts away. Sometimes I cried until my face burned. Sometimes I talked out loud to no one. Sometimes I recorded myself just to get the words out, though I never really listened back. The air smelled like moss and minerals. The water was always colder than I expected. But each time I touched it, my body remembered what calm felt like. Water became my therapist, my mirror, my sanctuary. It taught me that no emotion lasts forever. It just changes forms. And as I started to heal, new cards began to surface. Hermit, solitude, reflection, finding my own light instead of chasing it in someone else's eyes. The Hanged Man, surrender, discomfort, the power of seeing from a new perspective. Judgment, or karma in this deck. Awakening, accountability. Realizing I had been living the same story with different faces. The Moon, illusion, emotion, the subconscious surfacing like tides. When I laid them down beside the star, and the King of Pentacles, I realized it was the map of my healing. Hope, earth, isolation, perspective, awakening, and clarity. That's what tarot really is, a neurological mirror. The brain is wired for pattern and story, and symbols activate the same regions that integrate memory and meaning. They let the subconscious speak in a language the conscious mind can finally understand. Healing isn't just emotional, it's chemical, electrical, cellular. When you start regulating your nervous system, you're literally teaching your vagus nerve how to find safety again. Slow breathing, humming, gentle movement, especially long, low exhales, send messages that say, you're safe now. That's step 1, polyvagal regulation. Step 2, attachment repair. When you stop chasing unavailable people and start meeting your own needs, you rewire your internal GPS for love. You're teaching your system that safety can exist inside of you. Step 3, dopamine recalibration. When you redirect your energy from waiting to creating, journaling, painting, walking, recording your story, you rebalance your brain's reward circuitry. Fulfillment starts coming from expression instead of validation. Healing is repetition. Every moment you choose self-trust over self-abandonment, your neurological pathways shift. You are quite literally becoming someone new. Over the past few years, I've gone from chasing closure to creating peace, from needing reassurance to offering it to myself, from mistaking anxiety for connection to understanding that real love feels calm. That's what emotional sovereignty is, not needing to shrink to be safe. It says, I'm not too much, you just weren't ready for my depth. And maybe that's the lesson of the Tower, because sometimes the love story has to collapse for you to find your foundation. The Tower doesn't fall to destroy you, it falls to free you. And what card follows the Tower? The Star. Always. The light that returns after the fall. And if we go one step further into my reading of my reconnection with my past love, the Lovers in reverse would come in. Because when I look back now, I see that connection wasn't really about him at all. It was about the version of me trying to love myself through him. The Lovers reversed isn't about a failed relationship, it's about integration. It's the invitation to marry your inner opposites, logic and intuition, doing and being, masculine drive and feminine flow. When those parts stop fighting and start dancing, love stops being something you chase. It becomes something you are. If you've ever been called too much, remember this. Your nervous system isn't broken. It's responsive. Your tears aren't weakness. They're data. Your sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's your inner compass. So here are a few things that help me come home to myself. And we've talked about some of these before, and I do think they're very useful tools, so I just want to go over them again. The first one is name it to tame it. When emotion rises, speak it out loud. This is grief. This is fear. Labeling emotion reduces amygdala activation and brings prefrontal calm. So, vagus breathing. Inhale for 4, exhale for 6. Long exhales activate parasympathetic rest. Ground with your senses. Notice 5 things you can see. 4 you can feel. 3 you hear. 2 you smell. And 1 you taste. Presence rewires perception. Co-regulation. Safety is contagious. Hug your pet. Call a friend. Sit by water. Our nervous system syncs through micro cues. Connection is biology, not weakness. And if you've ever been the one to say, "You're too much," that doesn't make you cruel. It means you were overwhelmed and your body didn't have language for it. Next time, try maybe, "I need a minute to breathe." That's still a boundary. It just keeps the bridge intact. So here's what I've learned. You are never too much. You were just in rooms that couldn't hold your fire. And that fire, that sensitivity, it's sacred. It's what keeps you soft in a world that numbs itself to survive. It's what turns pain into poetry, wounds into wisdom, and heartbreak into art. Some people will call it overwhelming, but others will call it home. And the right ones won't flinch from your flame. They'll gather around it. And if you need a mirror to see yourself more clearly, I'm still offering 3-card tarot mirror readings this week, focused on emotional alchemy and sensitivity. Not fortune telling, just reflection. Because tarot doesn't predict your future, it reflects your becoming. And when you see yourself clearly, your brain, your body, and your life reshape around the truth. So keep feeling deeply, keep loving bravely, and remember, you don't have to keep the fire lit alone. Even flames rest by the river.